Stand Atlantic hit a home run with this that it seemed like it would have been impossible to follow it up. But then they released Molotov, which left me absolutely fucking speechless, and I still can't come up with words to describe how that song made me feel on my first listen, or even now on my, 10th or 15th listen. So, whatever the fuck this band has in store for their third album, I am sitting right in front of the door of the control car on that fucking hype train.
Several months later.
For the first time in my life, I'm fucking speechless. I got nothing.
Disclaimer!
Most of the world doesn't share your opinion.
Yes, I'm a little late to talking about this album, but I got a good reason for it. You see, when Shinedown released their lead single, Planet Zero, off of the album of the same name, I didn't really feel that song all that much. But then when I saw them live a couple weeks later and they played the same song, it hit a lot more harder live than it did on the original studio version. And this album came out 1 week before I got to see Stand Atlantic live, so I wanted to wait until I saw the concert to see if any of the songs hit a bit harder live and if I could have any extra thoughts on it. Sadly, that wasn't really much of the case. Stupid band. But nonetheless, Stand Atlantic is a pop-punk band born from Syndey, Australia, and f.e.a.r. is their third studio album, following up after the massive success that was their sophomore album, Pink Elephant, an album that ended up being my favorite album of 2020. So what do I think of f.e.a.r.? Well, a lot of things, so let's waste no time and get right into it.
I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say, I'm talking to myself on a doomsday.
Doomsday is the opening track of the album and pretty much shows off what the band has set up. It starts off sounding like a heavy-hitting track that you'd expect from them, but still sounding like a new flavor of their sound compared to Pink Elephant and Skinny Dipping. And then you get into the pre-chorus where it switches up in this really atmospheric 80s vibe. The first verse includes trap percussion, and the second verse has these hyper-pop-esque beat break drums. Lyrically, I guess it works as an opening track, with Bonnie straight up saying in the chorus that she has no idea what to say, because the song's about basically writer's block, or just the fact that the label was wanting her to write new music, but she had nothing to write about. I say that I guess it works as an opening track because I have some thoughts about the track listing that we'll get into towards the end of the video, but nonetheless, Doomsday is a pretty good song for the most part. I'd say probably my favorite part of it is the pre-chorus because I just love that 80s atmosphere that it brings, and I think the second time around there's more subtle things added onto it, so that's kind of nice. And another highlight for me is the beginning where everything kicks into gear and you get these chopped up, format-shifted vocals that, well, there was no way I wasn't going to like them. And while it's not a favorite or a highlight, I really like the hi-hat riff during the second half of the second verse. It's very reminiscent of my favorite hat riff that you can do on drums. Overall, just like the song, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's a good track, just not one of the highlights from the album, in my opinion. Pity Party was the third single for the album and features Royal The Serpent, which Wikipedia tells me that they're an electropop artist, but I don't think it'd be far-fetched to say that there's some hyperpop in there as well, which bleeds into Pretty Party pretty well. So well, in fact, that there was a hyperpunk remix of the song that's actually pretty fucking good. For a while, I would have even said that it was better than the original, but now it just kind of trades off depending on the mood I'm in. Also, Pity Party was probably the only song that hit harder live just because you got to scream "fuck you" and your fucking pity party as loud as you could, which will never not be great. For the song itself, it's alright. Was easily the weakest single out of the 6, but it's not bad. Lyrically, it's about people who just want to start drumming shit for no reason and then try to put the blame on other people and get sympathy and pity points, which, I'm gonna be honest, it took me until now, like, as I'm writing the script, to get that impression from the song. Even at the concert when Bonnie introduced the song by asking if anybody knew any drama-obsessed bitches, I didn't entirely understand that because I've always understood the chorus as being confident in yourself to the point that you don't want people to feel pity in you and telling those people to fuck off. One of the biggest things that I've taken from the song is the rhythm of the guitars on the chorus. It's such an odd rhythm and for me personally feels like it's very off and would be incredibly difficult to pull off, but I'm also an amateur guitar player. Nonetheless, Pity Party's alright, though I do love the opening lines of Royal's verse. I also just want to know, who the fuck is Giles? Van Gogh is a fast-paced banger about, I believe, more specifically hate comments, but just in general, being annoyed at hearing other people's opinions and wanting them to be silenced to the point that Bonnie would cut her ears off like Van Gogh did. Being entirely honest, for like the first few days of listening to this album, I had no idea what the line meant, because I took it a bit more in the literal sense and was just left sitting there going, okay, I'm pretty sure Van Gogh is the guy who cut his ear off, but did he, like, do anything that shut people up or something? The song itself is a massive highlight in the album, with Bonnie bringing in the usual poppy and catchy melodies onto such a heavy but banger instrumental, and I really love the final chorus where everything slows down, you can hear the different guitar strums, and then the third repeat has Bonnie switching up the melody for cutthroat and hollow, having it descend from a higher pitch and sounding so fucking satisfying and catchy as fuck. Overall, a banger that has constantly found its chorus stuck in my head, something that's very prevalent throughout this entire album. Dumb is what I would consider to be the poppiest sounding song on the album, and it works. Once again, it's about opinions and hate comments, but instead of going the Van Gogh route and doing anything to shut them up, it's instead going the route of feeding into them and just overall feeling dumb from it. It's heavily inspired by the stress that comes from the band trying to stay in the pop-punk sound while also venturing off and adding elements from other genres, which naturally leads gatekeepers to piss their pants over, "It's not being true to the genre." I am not one of those. I actually encourage the usage of using other genres to formulate your own unique sound, and Dumb, along with this entire album, brings that formulation in incredibly well. I also found out while writing the script that there's an alternate version of Dumb on the physical release versions that includes the original second verse. The one with Tom the Mailman was a last-minute edition that appears on the streaming services only. And, well, I owned the Molotov edition of vinyl. Was able to order it early because I was one of the top listeners on Spotify. So 3.5 hours later, I was able to get it recorded, and I can tell you, it's so much fucking better than the version that we got.
Everyone is everything I wanna be, and all I do is hate my own company. Oh, I just wanna keep my sanity.
I was never much of a fan of Tom's verse. It's alright, but there's some parts of it that just sounded really generic, and also when it's just a drum break in the instrumental, I always thought that was there because Tom wrote too many words in his verse and they need to put in a bar of drums since you can't really put anything melodic there. But I guess that was already in the instrumental, but in the original it feels less awkward and like it belongs, unlike the streaming version. And just in general, I like Bonnie's verse more. It's less subtle, but I think that's fine, and I like the more upfront approach. The best part of the song, without a doubt, is this.
Something's gotta give and I just don't get it.
Just the way Bonnie says "don't get it" sounds so goddamn satisfying to me. So yeah, overall, another catchy banger that's pretty enjoyable. I just now wish that the original was on streaming services as well.
I just don't get it. Oh, you got me tearing all my hair out, hair out. I got
Hair Out was the fourth single and was at one point probably my favorite out of the bunch, which is a weird thing to say given Deathwish being a single. But Hair Out has Bonnie saying MILF Atlantic, so 11 out of 10, best song on the album. Nah, but for real, Hair Out is a really good song. When the guitars kick in at the beginning, it makes me nut every fucking time. The interjected bits of the band fucking around the studio is a fun vibe. MILF Atlantic is my favorite moment of the song, but my second favorite is when the song breaks into an acoustic bridge and then Bonnie fucks the lyrics up, acknowledges it, and then a sharp electric guitar hits and the song kicks in back into full gear. It shows a moment of unpolishedness, and as someone who also makes music, I fucking relate. It also reminds me of the opening to Green Day's Good Riddance. Lyrically, it's like the previous two tracks, with it being about people wanting to put the band in a box and not allow them to step out of it, which I can sort of relate to because I'm going through my own personal struggles with pressure towards my own music, and I don't have shit for followers, so I guess I can give the song bonus points for doing that. Overall, I like it. It easily got topped as best single though, but that's for a little bit later. For now, it's time to talk about the big one. It is fucking insane that this became one of the weaker tracks. When Hair Out dropped, I didn't want to say that it was my favorite single, because I thought Deathwish was so good that it was impossible to top it. Well, after the fifth single and the rest of this album, there's no denying that this is one of the weaker songs on the album. Which is fucking saying something when this was my second favorite track of 2021 and only got snubbed out by Depression the Game. From the trap punk production to Bonnie's infectious melodies, this song is a banger from back to back that I hold 161 plays as of me writing the script. I guarantee you by the time I even record this, it'll probably gain like 10 new plays. I'm not really sure what else I can say about this, given how I said everything I could in my Best Songs of 2021 video, so just go watch that, I guess. Only thing new I can add here is that Deathwish is one of the weaker tracks in the album, and that's just fucking insane. Switchblade was the fifth and, in my opinion, best single from the album, bringing in a heavy-hitting banger that's mostly rock, but has a little bit of EDM synths thrown in there that just add on to the heaviness, in my opinion. Oh yeah, there's also the shred solo that has, like, absolutely no fucking right being on here. How can you just put so many good things into one song? Lyrically, it's a track that I can kind of sort of relate to. At least it's one that I just really feel the vibe of. The deadpan delivery during the verses to the intense anger in the chorus is a range of emotions that I often feel, and I love hearing it in this song. Especially during the chorus when Bonnie says headlock. That has no right sounding that fucking good. There's also the sound of the bass during the verses. My god, that sounds so muddy and grimy in all the best ways possible. The track just keeps up with this high-paced energy for its 2.5-minute runtime, and it barely feels like you have any time to breathe, and I love it for that. It continues the pattern of this album and just making banger after banger, and we show no sign of stopping it. This was easily the single I played the most, outside of Deathwish, because it just immediately clicked on my first listen and shot itself up to being the best. Yes, even better than Deathwish. Again, how? Anyways, from here on out, it's just new tracks, so let's see what they are like. Never in my life have I wanted a nut from just a mix of a song. Nails from the Back is about anxiety, and the way Bonnie decides to tackle that subject was by thinking of the worst way that you could bite your nails. And I can say that she's correct because just trying to envision the act of biting your nails from the back makes me fucking wince. I should probably explain that opening comment, should I? Well, you see, the song opens up with just Bonnie and the guitars, and it sounds pretty up close and nice, and then the bass kicks in, and you can hear a layer of reverb behind Bonnie's vocals that just sound so incredibly ambient to the point of euphoria. I want to physically stand in that reverb, it sounds so nice. And then you get these guitar arpeggios in the background that I don't know how to form into words how they make me feel. Like a nice tingle going up
your spine.
Like the kind that doesn't feel uncomfortable, but it makes you shiver and you're left somewhat satisfied afterwards. And then while it's not mix-related, I could say everything I said about Bonnie's vocals on Deathwish when it comes to her on the chorus. It sounds so incredibly good, like she just hits the right register for it to be high-pitched, but still sounding satisfying. It's also just a really good vocal melody. That's something that stat songs have, but this is one of the best ones when it comes to that, in my opinion. Oh, and you can't forget the backing vocals for when she says from the back, the attack, and the yeah-yeahs, that just add a right amount of accenting to them that once again sounds so fucking good. I also just noticed the very subtle but very up-close acoustic guitars during the bridge that, again, are another thing that's mixed very well in this song. So overall, a very catchy banger. I'm running out of shit to fucking say. Bloodclot features the band having a more Blink-182 sound while still keeping their usual pop-punk sound while Bonnie vents about her relationship. Yeah, in an interview she stated that Bloodclot and another song that we'll get into in a moment were inspired from her going through a long-distance relationship for the past 2 years, and while I think the other song is a lot better, Bloodclot is a different take and a pretty good one. Basically feeling like you're just an annoyance to the person you're with even though you don't want to. That's why I love how you spend the whole song hearing Bonnie in a kind of sarcastic way saying, and then the very end of the song you hear her say, and just like Nails from the Back, we got the backing vocals during the chorus when she says blood clot stuck in your veins, and it sounds so great. And the tiny switch up of the groove in the middle of the second verse, ooh, so good. Then there's a guitar solo that does something that I've never heard done before until I heard Avenged Sevenfold's Creating God, where it borrows the chorus melody for a bit and then goes into its own thing. I know that's probably a basic thing done 1,000 times, I just personally never heard it until Creating God, and I thought that shit was pretty cool on that song, and I think it's pretty cool on this song. Again, Stat knows how to bring in a catchy melody, so translating it onto a guitar makes it honestly sound even better. And then after that guitar solo, you get easily the best moment in the entire song. That moment where everything but the vocals drop out and Bonnie's panned into the left ear and then the word hate brings everything back with the hit of a snare and the vocals get panned back to normal. I can't get enough of it. Overall, Bloodclot's yet another great song, and again, I'm running out of shit to say when it comes to this album. I know that it's gotten a bit repetitive hearing me just continue to say every song's a banger, but every song's a banger, and you're gonna continue hearing me say that so long as they continue making every song a fucking banger. I don't know what else to tell you. Okay, I actually do know what I can tell you. You're not gonna hear me call this one a banger. Yeah, this is easily my least favorite track on the album, and not because it's bad or anything, because it isn't. I'll go ahead and spoil the rest of this review and say there isn't a single bad song on this album, but Don't Talk to Me is easily the weakest in the track listing. The big thing is that it just doesn't leave anything memorable unlike the rest of the songs. Right now, as I'm writing these words, I have heard the song 21 times. I haven't listened to it again for me to find the thoughts that I want to put into words for the script like I've been doing for all the other tracks, but I honestly can't tell you a single thing about the song.
A few minutes later.
After taking a listen just now, I remember the song and all the reasons why I'm not a big fan of it. Like I said, it's not a bad song, it's upbeat, catchy, it gets me grooving, but there's just so many tiny things about the song that really affect my listening experience. For one, the writing. This is the only song of the album that I feel like the writing's a little phoned in and kind of feels like the most repetitive. Also, I know not every genre of music has to have their lyrics rhyme, but personally for me, I think it would be nice, and this song has a lot of lines that just don't rhyme, and whenever I notice it, it just leaves the line feeling awkward, and as if Bonnie didn't even try and just shoved sentences together and called it a day. There's also the second verse, which I haven't figured out what the final two lines are supposed to mean, and I'm sure they mean something, but they feel like they don't, if that makes any sense. It just feels like a rhyme for the sake of having a rhyme, which feels even more weird given the song's lack of rhyming. Even the melodies feel off. Like, the pre-chorus has her singing the first line very melodically, and then immediately following that up with a less melodic line delivery that doesn't rhyme, and it feels random and unsatisfying. I swear I don't think this is a bad song. It's just one of those that doesn't leave a lasting impression or have anything memorable, and so the cause of it is that every time I hear it, I end up finding more and more things that I don't like. So I'm gonna stop talking about the song now, since all I'm really able to say are a bunch of negatives, but I'll leave it with one positive. The one thing that's closest to being something memorable for me, because it's gotten stuck in my head occasionally, and I do like how it sounds, is the line, down into my dead dreams. I don't know what it is about this line, but I like the sound of Bonnie's voice when she delivers it, especially when she says dead dreams. Alright, I have an essay for one line in the next song, so let's go. X.O. is the second song I brought up during Bloodclot, and like I said, I think it's a much better song to come from the long-distance relationship. Starting up, we have the instrumental, which is an absolute heavy fucking hitter featuring the usual pop-punk, trap, EDM combo, but in a very dark tone, which works really well for the song topic, which more centers on the toxicity and argumentative side of being in a long-distance relationship. And like I said, Stat is really good at coming up with really catchy melodies, but X.O. just takes it to another level. I don't know what it is, but just the opening melody alone fills me up with so much emotion and enjoyment. Now, there's something about me that I'm not sure if I've made it aware enough on my channel yet, but any song about relationships is an easy win for me, but especially when it's on the more toxic, broken side, and so this being the epitome of that is most likely the reason why this is, spoiler alert, my favorite song on the album. And coming from someone who's been in a toxic relationship that ended up being mostly long distance and had a lot of arguing, this song just strikes so many chords and hits all the marks to becoming such an accurate and relatable banger that's present all throughout, but has one line in particular that really hits home. God fucking damn it, I love this line so much. Not only for just its writing level, with how the first verse establishes a pattern in the first two bars having an ad-lib that repeats the last two syllables, and then when the second verse comes in, the first half continues that pattern, and then breaks it for the ad-lib to say don't go instead of just repeating don't though, and then it continues on with the pattern. Which that alone is cool, but there's something even more deeper in just a change of the ad-lib. The establishing line is her accusing her SO of lying and saying that she loves her when she doesn't actually love her. That's a pretty damning accusation in a relationship. That's also something that really fucking hurts, especially when there is actual love there. It's also, I feel, a pretty common thing to say or think when you're going through a rough spot in your relationship. I know personally for me, there was a lot of times where I didn't feel like I was being loved, and that was probably the same for the person I was with, and I know people in my life that feel that way in their relationships. But to take it one step further and not have it as a feeling of question, but actually saying it like it's fact, is something that's fueled with a lot of anger. It's something that you would probably think that it's fact, and this is how it is. I know this person doesn't love me because you're angry at them, but then the second you calm down, or even worse, say it out loud to them, you realize that the anger is what fueled you to make you think that it's true, when in all reality, you have no fucking clue because you're not the other person. Which also makes the line of the chorus work really well in relation. So the ad-lib being "don't go" is an amazing follow-up from multiple different ways. It could be played out as if they're having another argument, and Bonnie says this line to her SO, and it rightfully angers them, so they go to leave, and Bonnie realizes what she just said, and is trying to apologize and tell them don't go, maybe even to the point of, like, begging them not to leave. Or it could be taken as something that's just in her head, which would play into the trait that comes into a toxic relationship of being back and forth with the person you're with, trading on and off of being angry at them and then loving them. So the "tell me you love me but you don't, though" would be the anger side, and then the "don't go" would be the loving them, accusing them of not loving you, but still wanting them to stay because you can't bear to be without them, and you truly don't want them to leave. And again, I say all this coming from having experienced this kind of behavior in a relationship, so I relate so fucking hard to this line. This might be like top 10 lines I relate to immensely. There's so much relatability and emotion, plus emotional response to this 11-word line, that it doesn't just make me hear it and feel, that's a fucking mood, or even, I relate to this on a spiritual level. Like, nah, I don't even have the words to describe how heavy-hitting and relatable this one fucking line is. I wrote 498 words on this line, for fuck's sake. I've gone full-on Ava fan over 11 words. That's how much I relate and love this line. I love it so much. It's not only my favorite line from the entire song, not only my favorite line from the entire album, not even my favorite line from Stand Atlantic, but without a doubt, one of my favorite lines of all time. That's how much I love this line. And that's just the tip of the iceberg on amazing moments to come from the song. There's also just the sound of the Dead Fumes ad-lib. That's a nut if I've ever heard one. There's also the vocal chop scream during the instrumental break. And again, I just love the sound of Bonnie's voice on this track. It's such a good song all around, and without a doubt my favorite from the album. Cabin Fever is like the perfect subversion of expectations, because this album came out after a 2-year shitstorm that completely changed anybody and everybody's perspective on the word quarantine, and one of the things that was a result was a lot of people feeling cabin fever, which you probably already know the meaning of that phrase, but to the people who don't, it's defined as irritability, listlessness, and similar symptoms resulting from long confinement or isolation indoors during the winter. So when I first saw the track list way back in January, I saw a song called Cabin Fever and thought that it would be a track about the pandemic. Holy dear fucking God, was I wrong. Nah, instead, Bonnie decided to make a dark as fuck track about pressure from the labels and deliver it over a heavy-hitting rock instrumental that only shows up after 50 seconds of a cold, dark trap beat and her rapping, and she sounds good! Now, yes, she was already showing off her rapping on Deathwish and Doomsday.
And also on Nails from the Back.
But this is like full frontal rap over a rap beat, and it sounds incredibly good, which is something I did not expect. The beat that they have going is also really good in my opinion. I love the cold muted synth in the beginning that establishes the dark mood of the song. Bonnie's vocal delivery also in the verses really complements the beat and the whole vibe of the track. And then when you get into the rock part of the song, it hits incredibly hard, and Bonnie brings in that usual incredibly catchy and really great sounding melody. It sounds especially amazing when she says headache. As well as in the second pre-chorus when she yells out insane and proceeds to just draw it out while going higher in pitch, but just high enough that it feels like it's a riser into the next line. There's also the second instance of the running from my demons on the freeway line where her voice drops in pitch to the beat on Freeway, which has absolutely zero reason to sound as good as it does. The song then breaks down in this dark, mysterious breakdown where, Jesus fucking Christ, those drums are booming, and those vocal effects on Bonnie really add a nice flavor to the vibe. And then we hear Bonnie's mom, which that just completely went by me on my first couple listens. Like, Obviously, I knew her mom was on the track given how it's in the title, but I never picked up on where she would have been until later on. And in an interview, Bonnie explained how that came about.
A little mama. So my mom does like voice acting, I guess you could call it. And I've always wanted to use her voice for something. And there was a moment in that song where we were like gonna get like the Siri voice to do it. And I was like, bruh, I got a IRL Siri living with me right now. Let's fucking get her to do it. And so, yeah, we just like got to do it. She was fucking ecstatic, dude. She's like our number one. She reposts screen caps on screen caps with a squiggly line on it. And like, she's fucking obsessed. I swear to God. So she was like so happy. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're asking me. So I'm very lucky to have such a supportive mom for sure.
So sweet. I love that.
Which that's cool and all, but can we just take a moment and talk about this?
My next goal is to get my dad to do a guitar solo on the next thing, whatever that is.
Yes, please. Honestly, I love Bonnie featuring her family on stat albums. Not only is it cool to see, especially given a band that has the numbers that they do, but also it reminds me of myself, since I've had multiple songs featuring my dad on them, and I'm just some 20-year-old living with his parents making shit in his room on FL Studio that pretty much only holds a fan base of friends on Discord. Okay, so anyways, this is followed up with... I mean, I guess you could do that. This part is what makes me say that Cabin Fever is the heaviest track on the album and that Molotov is just the encore. But, well, babe, it's time to hear me out onto my list of unpopular opinions. This part ruins the song for me, and I really fucking wish it didn't. Up until this point, the song is amazing and would have easily ended up as my second favorite track on the album, but whenever this part comes in, it just kills all momentum in my vibe, because I can't help but slightly cringe at Bonnie, 1, yelling like Fred Durst, but 2, yelling about how this is some real weird shit, when to me, it sounds pretty fucking normal. I mean, yeah, I get it. To stand Atlantic standards in the eyes of the label, and probably Bonnie herself, given how artists, including myself, are very self-critical, and also songs like Van Gogh, Dumb, and Hair Out all talk about the standards that Bonnie and the band feel like they're held to because they're in the pop-punk genre, which is in correlation to rock, one of the most gatekeeping genres out there. And yeah, the label probably looks at the band doing this and thinks it's a complete 180 move that's gonna tank the album and kill their career because they're a bunch of fucking idiots, but to me personally, this sounds like the most milquetoast shit someone could do compared to the shit I've heard or even the shit I've created. I've created shit like this.
I got no friends. All the shit's legendary to the end. I got no friends. And we'll never seem to make amends.
I'm also an Andrew Huang fan, which gives you shit like this.
I'm gonna climb to the top of the sparkle mountain, and I'm never gonna stop. You can't stop me now, you can't stop me now. I'm gonna climb to the top.
And hours of just synth modules and, a plant? But without a doubt, how could you possibly think the third act of Cabin Fever is some real weird shit when you've heard just the first track off of this fucking album.
My smile is stuck. I cannot go back to your frown land. My spirit's made up of the ocean and the sky and the sun and the moon and all I can see.
Yeah, so anytime I hear Bonnie yell about trap rock being some real weird shit, it just completely takes me out of the song, because to me, it's pretty normal, even to the standards of Stand Atlantic. I just listened to about 13 tracks of this sound. I've heard Deathwish 161 times. Nonetheless, Cabin Fever is an exceptionally great track, even with my own personal feelings on the later end, and like I said, I think it is the heaviest track on the album and the closing track. This is the outro. This is the end of the album, with the next song serving more as just the encore. And I think that's even more apparent given how this was the final song of the concert after they shut off all the lights and had the crowd chanting one more song, which made me laugh because I could also hear them yelling molotov. What the fuck was that delivery? Speaking of that concert, as fun and great as it was, they did kind of ruin Molotov, because like I said in my Songs of 2021 video, it left me speechless on my first listen, and that was because of Bonnie's vocals. This is her at just full-blown anger, and it's what made the song so goddamn shocking and amazing. Yeah, the instrumental is pretty heavy as well with a lot of thrash influence, but it was specifically Bonnie's angry delivery that carried it. And then at the concert, she just melodically sung in a high pitch, and it kind of fucking sucks. But I don't want to rag on that too much. The actual song is really good, though I would say it's fallen into being one of the more weaker singles for me personally, just because I don't hold all that much anger inside me anymore, hence why I haven't been into Five Finger Death Punch as much as I used to, but nonetheless, it's still a great song filled with a bunch of raw, energized anger that was fueled by religion. That's cool. But more specifically, Bonnie growing up as a bisexual person in a Catholic school that would have seminars about how the gays are bad and are going to hell.
Ugh, Stand Atlantic fucking sucks now. Everyone's got to feed into the woke agenda. I like them back on skinny dipping. Stop forcing your gay woke agenda onto me.
Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
And while when it comes to gay rock songs, my personal favorite is In This Moment's Natural Born Sinner, Molotov is still a very good song all throughout that I can definitely see being a great help for someone going through the same or a similar situation as Bonnie. And if you can't relate, then that's no problem either, because it's still a fun song, and aside from, like, one line, it's pretty subtle, I would say, with its message. I still don't really have much to say about the song, to be honest. It's just something that was shocking as fuck to get from the band, and I've enjoyed my time with it. Also, Bonnie's scream lasts for 10 whole seconds. That's pretty fucking impressive.
Dude, I did not even have to look at your eyes and I know they're cross-eyed.
I lied about EXO. This is objectively the best track on the album. Overall, f.e.a.r is a fucking beast of an album, and without a shadow of a doubt, the best work from Stand Atlantic so far. Something that I was pretty sure was going to be the case by the time Hair dropped, but Switchblade solidified it, hence why I immediately copped the Molotov edition vinyl, because I had zero doubts this album would disappoint. It's even an album that kinda, in some weird way, helped me reconnect with a friend of mine, which I won't go into detail about it, but I'll say that after I finished the album, after I heard the final moments of laughter on I Wonder What Garlic Bread They Eat at MENSA, I just sat there in silence for God knows how long, reflecting over the past few months of my life, and it made me reconnect with him the next day, and I thank the album for that. It's also an album that hasn't left my mind since its release, partially because I have this review, but also just because it's such a monstrous step forward for the band, and I feel like it really defines their sound. After this album, they can definitely continue on to branch to different genres for inspiration while keeping their pop-punk roots, and I think it works exceptionally well. Especially given how I personally think this is a true modern-day pop-punk album, given how it's blending the pop-punk elements with modern pop like trap and hyper-pop. Also, Todd in the Shadows does this thing in his end-of-the-year lists that's the best 2 seconds of pop music, and so I tried to find the best 2 seconds, most of them ended up being more than 2 seconds, of this album, and almost every single song had multiple contenders.
Lifeboat, shall I pull a Van Gogh? Something's gotta give and I just don't get it.
MILF Atlantic. I just keep pulling my hair out. Oh, I think I fucked the lyrics.
Kissing the night, I don't know what I'm doing. You make my head spin, watch my fortune explode. Strong as a chick wind, got me in a
can't even say you right now.
Alright, let's fucking do it.
Alright.
With all that being said, I brought up earlier about the track list. I normally don't like it when an album rollout has all the singles be the first couple tracks, but honestly, I kinda wish that was the case for this album. Because as the singles were rolling out, each song was getting better and better and better and better, and then when listening to the album, each never-before-heard song was continuing that progression of getting better and better and better and better until it all reached its peak at Cabin Fever. So I would probably reorganize the track list to keep all the singles at the front of the album in the order of the rollout. Maybe have Pity Party be the first track, but keep Molotov in its place as the encore. But other than that, it's still a solid album. Also, I do get that Hair Out makes sense where it's at, given Van Gogh and Dumb being the same topic, and it's kind of a mini trilogy in the album, but I still like the idea of having each song just continue to rise throughout the album. Now, usually when I review an album, I like to rank the entire track list. That's going to be extremely difficult to do because I was 20 listens in and still couldn't figure out how I would rank it. And honestly, I still don't really know. I know what my favorite and least favorite is, but everything in the middle becomes a fucking headache to sort out. But I'll give you the best list I could possibly give, which goes Don't Talk to Me, Molotov, Pity Party, Doomsday, Deathwish, God, that's insane that it's this low, Dumb, Cabin Fever, Hair Out, Bloodclot, Nails from the Back, Van Gogh, Switchblade, EXO, and finally, I wonder what kind of garlic bread they eat at MENSA. Again, this will most likely change drastically aside from the placement of 14, 2, and 1, because every time I listen to a song of this album, I think, oh, that's like my third favorite track, and then the next song plays and I go, oh, that's like my third favorite track, which is fucking insane for an album to break me in this sort of way. It's even broken my friend and freaking collaborator Jonas, who said multiple times that he can't even find a favorite track on the album, something he can usually do after 2 or 3 listens. And he's also heard the album about 20 times. So when it comes to my overall score, it's a little wonky given Don't Talk and the later end of Cabin Fever, but I would say it rides a fine line between a 9.5 and a full-on 10, depending on my mood and how generous I want to be. We'll see how I feel on this album at the end of the year, but I can already tell you that despite 2022 bringing me a Shinedown, Five Finger Death Punch, and possible Avenged Sevenfold album, this will most definitely end up being my favorite album of the year. Good fucking job to everyone who worked on this album, and I once again am looking forward to the next Stat album, because holy fuck, where do we go from here?
Has their own opinion, but my opinion is the best opinion. I'm sure you figured that out already.